It doesn't matter if Sacagawea is 1% Indian or 90% Indian. DNA should never matter, except to physicians treating inherited illnesses. Your bloodline should not dictate who you vote for, what job you get, where your kids go to school, whether you get promoted, or anything else. A ruling class sends the opposite message. They believe in a racial spoils system. They tell you that your immutable traits, the ones that you had absolutely nothing to do with, are the most important thing about you. That is the very definition of racism. It's also a dangerous course for a country to take, especially right now. Increasingly, researchers know much more about DNA and the role that it plays in human life. It's not hard at all to imagine a society that degenerates into pure genetic determinism, with factions squabbling for entitlements based on their genes. That's already happening in Brazil, where race tribunals measure people's skull shapes to see if they qualify for affirmative action. Other countries throughout history, as you may have read, have done similar and horrifying things. Do you want to live in a place like that? No thanks. Better to stick to our ideals, where we do our best, not always successfully, but we try to treat people as individuals and judge them by their behavior, what they do, and not their ancestry. Under that system, Fraudazuma never would have bothered to make up a fake family tree. It would have been pointless. Harvard likely would have hired someone impressive in her place. Multiply that by every institution in America, and you'd have a better country. Now, Elizabeth Warren's video today included ample footage of news personalities ridiculing her claims about her heritage. Here it is.
What does Warren translate into Cherokee as? Spreading bull?
You know Elizabeth Warren, right?
Most people.
Radio host Howie Carr was making war whoops in that clip, and he joins us tonight to make more. Howie, it's great to see you. So what do you make? I mean, you must feel a little chastened now that it turns out she's potentially 1/1000th American Indian. Are you retracting your mockery?
No. Tucker, if the Boston Globe was a legitimate news organization, the headline on
Yes.
the story would be something like, DNA test prove white woman. Or, DNA test confirms Senator Warren is still a fake Indian. I mean, this is ridiculous. All my life, Tucker, the Globe has been running a story every 6th year saying Senator Kennedy is turning his life around. Well, Senator Kennedy's gone, so now Elizabeth Warren is turning her life around, and they're trying to promote her. Last month they had an amazing story about how her ethnic fraud, claiming they'd been American Indian, did not affect her meteoric rise in academia after she started checking the box. That didn't work. So now they're back with this today.
Now, let me
by
just
the way,
ask you,
Tucker,
as the only person really outside New England who ever looks at the Boston Globe, I always wonder, are they taking payment directly from her, or is it just a kind of moral payment that they? Why are they carrying water for a U.S. senator over there?
Well, I think she's part of the resistance, and what was interesting to me is this morning when the story came out, it said, well, she's somewhere between 132nd and 1/512th, which is not that great, but that was all wrong. They're used to fake news, but this time it was fake math, and it was really only 1/64th or up to 1,024. As soon as I leave here tonight, I'm playing the lottery. My number is 1024 tonight. But the thing is, all the moonbats who love her, they've all posted the story saying she's 132nd, and this proves it. They didn't run the corrections. They had to run 2 corrections on the story. It was the fuzzy math until mid-afternoon. So they're carrying water for her.
Has anyone ever asked the obvious question, which is, who cares? I mean, if she has one genetic makeup, does that make her a better person than if she has another genetic makeup? I mean, do we live in that country where you're judged by your DNA?
Tucker, I've been offering to pay for her DNA test for many moons. I offered to come up with my own wampum to pay for it, but she refuses. I mean, I think it's she's playing on the white guilt, and I just want to mention this too, Tucker. Another fraud that she's involved in, Pow Wow Chow. You're familiar with this cookbook?
Yes,
this is the one that she. This is the cookbook that she contributed to, all Indian recipes, and I think a chef prepared some for you. One of them is cold crab omelets, with very popular on the Trail of Tears back in the 19th century. Cold crab.
Actually,
it was lifted from a New York Times cookbook by a French chef.
We're actually recreating that recipe later on the show. Howie Carr, really the best thing about New England, joining us tonight. Thank you, Howie. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Democrats increasingly are pushing back against that assumption. Will Juando is the Democratic nominee for Montgomery County City Council in the state of Maryland, and he joins us tonight. Will, thanks a lot for coming on.
Good to be here.
So this seems like a bright red line that you would never want a foreign citizen voting in your election, would you?
Yeah, and they're not allowed to, and that's not actually what Stacey was saying. I think it's a distraction to talk about that. Her point was the larger point that there's a lot of ways to be civically involved. I often say voting's the end of the civic process. Before that, you ask your congressman for or your city councilman for a sign on your street. You organize, you protest. The Dreamers are a perfect example, not citizens, but they've had tremendous political impact on both sides of the aisle.
Why would you want someone who's here legally, who's not supposed to be here, you didn't welcome the person, living here in violation of your laws,
right,
taking services illegally, using a fake federal ID, which 100% of them are. Why would you want that person influencing your political process?
Well, Dreamers have influenced it
No, not
greatly.
There are 22 million
but they're
illegals.
The same types of people
not
you're talking
the same.
about.
There's
here.
a special legal designation for Dreamers, fair or not, being upheld by a federal judge now. But the overwhelming majority are not Dreamers. There are 22 million illegals. That's the federal term for them. Why would you want them influencing anything about your country?
Well, if you live here, well, first of all, undocumented, I'd like to call them undocumented individuals, they pay over $20 billion in federal taxes, but receive no benefit.
Well, that's of course
no
not.
Social
That's
Security,
that's
no Medicare,
not,
no
not
anything.
true
And they
at all. And actually, they receive billions in Medicare. They're in Medicaid. And, of course, the overwhelming majority of the births that they have in this country are paid for by you and me, legal citizens. So they take a lot. We educate their kids. They use our infrastructure. But the question is more a theoretical one. Why, if someone is breaking your law, would that person have a right to influence, is a citizen of a foreign country, like the Russian hackers who hacked our... No, I'm serious. It's a foreigner who's not allowed to be here. Why would that person have
Everyone
any
arrived here at some point, even your ancestors, right? And when they got here, they got engaged in the civic life of their community. They went down and figured out how to have their community be safe, how to get a driver's license, how to apply for school.
But legally, for sure. I'm not making an argument against immigration at all. I'm just saying...
and again, they're not voting.
But is there a...
But
you're saying that they should have an influence on our election.
They already do. It's a fact.
But why would we want
because
that?
Because anyone that lives here in the county is contributing to, in the country that's contributing to our democracy, has a right to be heard.
So what does citizenship mean?
That gives you a right to vote. They don't have the right to vote, but they can participate in the civic crisis.
Even if
they're human beings.
Even if they're here illegally.
Even if they're here undocumented illegally, yes, people participate in the civic process.
So do
President Trump said that Dreamers can participate in the civic process.
Dreamers are a tiny...
No, they're the same thing.
No, they're not at all the same thing. They are not...
Are they not undocumented illegally?
They're not here illegally because President Obama made them legal temporarily, as you know.
Right.
But the 22 million are here
before
illegally.
They advocated to get that status.
And they shouldn't have gotten it. And for political reasons, the former president caved to their demands. My question is, do I have this right to go to a foreign country and demand that they change the way they govern themselves?
Oh, people do it all the time. Americans are overseas advocating for all sorts of changes in repressive countries and nations across the world.
And you think that's okay? If I show up in a country illegally, I just walk into Mexico and I say, I demand that you make accommodations for me. Do you think that's a little weird or no?
Not accommodations. What I'm saying is that we have an immigration debate in this country that's been going on for a long time. If you go back to President Reagan, he made a lot of people legal. All that stuff is happening.
He made a lot of people legal, and it was a huge mistake, I think. I'm not here to flack for Republicans. I'm here to determine what the truth is. And if I go to a foreign country and they say, you're not allowed to be here, and I say, shut up, racist, you have to listen to me, I demand you allow me to stay.
But no one said that here.
What do you mean?
You're saying, and no one has said that.
Are you joking?
No, no one said that.
We run tapes of illegal aliens all the time, burning U.S. flags, carrying Mexican flags, calling anyone who opposes it.
There's plenty of Americans that burn U.S. flags, too.
I agree, and I'm against it. But they're citizens.
Me too.
It's their country. And it's not...
So do you want to load everyone up and just ship them out?
Yeah, most of them, I think. I mean, if they're here illegally... Well, no, I guess they have a right to stay.
What's your criteria?
Well, the president said that these people have a right to stay. Okay, and a federal judge has upheld that. I disagree, but that's the law. Right. The other law is that people who are not here legally have to leave. There are 22 million.
So if we passed a pathway to citizenship like President Bush wanted to do, and we got
I would oppose that, but if it were the law... See, I believe in the law. You guys don't.
I believe in the law as well.
Then why wouldn't we deport everyone here illegally?
The lead into this story was Stacey Abrams is saying that illegal immigrants should vote. She didn't say that, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, no,
no one's saying that.
I think she was saying that, but you're saying that illegal aliens have a right to influence our political process, and I'm saying we should be horrified by that prospect. Why wouldn't we be?
No. Everyone started here as an illegal immigrant or immigrant of some
true.
or of some.
Really?
Some
I'm looking at my stage manager who grew up in another country and came here legally.
Well, so did my dad. He came over here.
Exactly.
Even if you have people coming to this country, when the Irish came off the boats, they weren't necessarily legal. So people were not. That's the way this country was.
So we have no right to defend our borders because the Irish came?
Of course we can defend them. Of course we can defend them.
Thank you for that. I wish we had more time. I think it's an interesting topic.
We'll come back.
I appreciate taking time out of your schedule to join us.
Only citizens should vote, though.
Amen. Hillary Clinton at it again. Well, leaders of the Democratic Party are trying very hard not to talk about it in public, but Democrats are, as a factual matter, on track to impeach the president if they retake the Congress in November. If they retake the House, which looks likely, to be honest. And they have no choice in that. The Democratic base is so amped up, hating Trump is the one thing that holds them together, that the vast majority of them think the president should be impeached. For what? Doesn't matter. Being a bad guy. In November, if they take the House, they probably will have no choice but to go for impeachment, whether they have a good reason for it or not. Everybody knows this. Richard Goodstein is an attorney and former advisor to Bill Hillary Clinton, and he joins us tonight. Now, Richard, let me just say, I'm pretty sure you're against impeachment. Okay, because you were here for the whole Clinton impeachment. You saw how it hurt the Republicans. You don't like Trump, but you also know there's no actual high crime or misdemeanor for which you could impeach him. It's insane. But you also know your base, and you know they are insane. So how is the Democratic Party going to keep from being driven by its own lunatic voters if they take the House?
Well, just for the record, I actually think it's not just high crimes and misdemeanors. It's treason, bribery, high crime. I actually think that the universe of things that we could go after, but let's have that for another day.
So having a press conference with Vladimir Putin could get you impeached?
I think if he knew about the fact that close family members were consorting with the Russians during the campaign, yeah.
Consorting with the Russians.
That's another discussion.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is the Democratic leaders are pushing off discussion of impeachment because they're going to win on health care and on the issue of do you contain Trump or do you enable him? And I think most people want to contain him. Look, the fact is, in 2014, most Republicans wanted to impeach Obama. And that didn't cause the Republican leaders to go after impeaching him then.
Oh, I remember that. That's when they were surrounding Democratic lawmakers in restaurants and pounding on the front doors of the Supreme Court and screaming like wild animals and shooting people with bear spray in the streets of Portland where the Republicans were yeah, it's all coming back to me. I mean, come on. There's no comparison between the lunacy on display on the left, it's a threat to you, as you know, and what the Republicans are up to. Like, they can't control those people. They're not controlling them now.
I would say there's no comparison to locking up babies in cages with anything that Barack Obama did. That's what infuriated people, to surround people in restaurants. Look, here's what the Democrats are going to do if you really want to know.
Babies are being put in cages?
On the Mexican border. But again, another discussion. I think what's going to happen is there are going to be public hearings, hearings like Watergate on the Russian attack, on the emoluments, on obstruction of justice, on tax fraud, money laundering, bank fraud, on a series of things. I don't think they're going to be going after impeachment because I think politically they realize they couldn't clear the Senate, and they frankly rather have a weakened Trump to run against than...
Wait, so can I ask you a sincere question? Do you really think after 2 years of talking about Russia, when Russia poses no actual threat to us, the threat is China and Google? I mean, there are real threats. Russia's not in the running. You really think they're going to have hearings on Russia? You think that helps them to talk more about Russia and Vladimir Putin and treason? I mean, honestly, you think they would do that? That's so nuts.
I think Trump appointed officials at the top of our intelligence community. You've heard about this Pompeo fellow. Remember, he used to be head of the CIA. He said that the Russians attacked the United States and posed a threat to us.
I don't care what Pompeo says. Do you really think that we need more hearings on Russia? Russia? Honestly?
I absolutely think...
Are there a lot of voters who want that?
I think all these people that testified behind closed doors in the House and even the Senate should, like the Watergate hearings, that's what the public's going to know, what really happened. And I think the Mueller report, frankly, will lack that. It will lack kind of the face and the immediacy of what the public hearings would do. So, yes.
So you're saying the Mueller, an independent investigation that extends beyond 2 years is not enough. We need more hearings about Russia. You really, and you think the public's going to say, thank heaven we elected the Democrats. I want to hear more about Russia.
I would be more sensitive to that chart. I would be more sensitive to the charge about how long Mueller's going on if there was a single Republican that complained when Ken Starr went beyond year 2, 3, 4, etc. So yes, I actually think the public is owed a public hearing and showing about what happened. I don't think they haven't gotten that yet.
I know out there, throughout the fruited plains, people are grateful that we're going to keep talking about Russia.